Hey guys, it's Tessa. I am so excited to do this video today, and as you saw from the title, we are starting, I think it's gonna be part one of like 2 or 3 of me making my own cardigan and pattern. Alright, so to begin, I wanted to show you my inspiration, or the basically board I've created for this cardigan, to kind of give you an idea of where I'm at with it before you see some of the next clips, because I filmed a bunch of this on different days. But first, my main idea immediately was I want to knit the cardigan versus crocheting it. I just think it looks smoother for myself. And originally I was leaning towards like a green, like a dark green, or like a mustard, or even like a burnt orange maybe for the cardigan. I looked at a ton of different brands. I even looked at more expensive brands and things like that, but none of it really called to me really. But the other thing I really wanted to do with this cardigan was add some sort of embroidery to it maybe. I'm still, as of editing this, unsure if I want to do that still or not, just because I know it'll be slightly complicated, as the knit material can be warped or stretched or hindered in certain ways when it comes to embroidery. But I do kind of want to add it. My main thought was adding it on the pockets. I haven't added those yet, so I can always do those separately from the body of the cardigan, see if I like it, and then go from there. But I really wanted to add some sort of embroidery to it. Originally, this cardigan was called the Woodland Cardigan because it was going to have all this little foliage written, or it was going to have all this foliage embroidered onto it. So some mushroom caps, some vines, maybe a couple flowers. But now I'm not too sure, so I've switched it to the Forest and Plains cardigan. Again, you'll see just from the texture that kind of gives me the idea of woods or a forest, and then the other section's very flat, like plains. I've already started on the back panel here. It's almost done. I think I'm doing the final 30 rows currently. I can't wait for this panel to be done. But I've basically been working on the plans for this pattern for probably 6 months at this point. I've written down different variations. I've tested a couple different things a few times, but I finally picked the yarn, bought it, and have started the project. I am using the Lion Brand Collection 100% Baby Alpaca. This is the color Fawn. This is a light 3, as noted on the pattern itself. It says, weight 3, and it says light underneath it. I don't know if you can see that. But I wanted this cardigan to be kind of like an everyday cardigan for me, something I can just wear. Like this guy, it works. It's just really clunky, really large, and it's just a lot. So on hotter days, or just in general on days where I'm being more sensitive towards my clothing, it's just too much. So I wanted to make something that was a little bit smoother, a little bit tighter fit, and that maybe was a bit more breathable. Even though this is 100% cotton, since it's crocheted, it's really thick and bulky. And with this, when you hold up, you can see the shadow of my finger through the fiber of this alpaca. So I really like that. Plus, since it is alpaca, or since it's a natural fiber just in general, it should be fairly breathable. I get really warm really easily, or really cold really easily. So I'm hoping something like this alpaca will be really useful. When I was doing my math to figure out how much yarn I would need, I calculated, I think, 17.5 balls of yarn. So I use Procreate for a lot of my pattern planning, because I can have multiple layers and work in layers versus, having to create multiple sheets of something. But you can kind of tell from the notes I have made the overall sizing of each item, and so on. I'm going to screen record it so you can see what I'm talking about more. But you'll see here, for the front panels, I've noted that it's 7.5 and 2.6. Where I got that number specifically is I was testing a couple different stitch types I wanted to do for this project. I couldn't decide if I wanted to do it all just knit stitch, or if I wanted to do it seed stitch or broken rib or something like that. So I got a couple different colors. I got that fawn color and I got the orange one as well because I wasn't committed on the color yet. But you'll see here I tested 3 different stitches. Down here's the broken rib, this one's the knit, and then this one's a seed stitch. This swatch alone is 5 inches long by 4 inches tall. I was also able to use this as my gauge swatch because I had to block it to make sure all the stitches looked right. And upon doing that, I figured out that 4 inches up and down would be 45 rows, or excuse me, 36 rows, and 5 inches across would be 30 stitches, excuse me. So it'd be technically a 4x4 or 4x5 square is a 30 stitches by 45 stitches. Excuse me, I said that wrong the first time. So 5 inches across, that means it's 6 stitches per inch. And then in the other direction, so going up and down, it's 9 stitches per inch. However, I just used the 4x5 square to kind of get an idea of how much yarn I would need. I don't know if this math is correct, and feel free to correct me below, but I tried using one of those yardage calculators that I found online, and it was all of them were giving me different numbers. Some were saying I needed 3,000 yards, some were saying I needed only 1,800. A few of them kind of consistently said anywhere from about 1,950 to like 2,200. Each ball of yarn is 50 grams and has 146 yards in it. The way I calculated my math, which is again likely wrong, but since most of my panels are variations of squares or rectangles, I figured I could figure out how many 4x5 squares I could deposit into each panel. So again, for that top panel, it's 14 inches across the bottom, which means I can fit 2 in a little over a half on one side or across, and then I could fit a total of 7 up and down because that was a total of 32 inches. So 32 divided by 4 is 8. I think it's actually 31 inches, but my point still stands. It's roughly 8 of these squares are crossed. I took all measurements of everything and added all those numbers together, and then I got 108.54, so basically 108.5 squares across all the pattern pieces. And then I don't know, this math doesn't make sense. I don't know where I got the idea to do this, but I took that number, so the 108, divided it by 50, got some number, and then times it back by 8, and I got 17.5-ish. I'm not convinced that that is how that math is supposed to work. I tried doing it a different way, that didn't work either, but that gave me 17.5 balls of yarn, which is roughly 20,000 or 2,000, so 2,000 in total. We're gonna find out if that's enough. The pattern pieces you see on the screen recording are not perfect because I did decreases on the back panel and I'm doing decreases on the front panels as well for better shaping. So in theory, using these exactly, that is the number I would get. So assumably it'd be a little bit less in the end because of all the decreasing I'm doing. Additionally, I ended up buying 20 balls in total. I was like, 17 is a fine number, but again, I'm getting all of these different references for 2,500 or 1,900. I just wasn't really sure. But yeah, in total, we are going to be making a back panel, 2 front panels, 2 sleeves. I'm not convinced on making pockets yet. I think they'd be nice, but I'm a little nervous to do them in case they don't look perfect. And then we're also going to add the button band, and that should be all the independent pieces we're making. I know some people for cardigans choose to make the bottom or the back and the 2 front panels at the same time and then just separate for the sleeve sections. I could have done that. I didn't really want to, was the problem. For me, I like doing them individually. I like doing individual panels because I think it helps me really see what I'm looking at, and it really helps me gauge realistically how much more I have left to do. I don't think I'd be nearly as far if I chose to do it that way initially. Also, I don't know, I like having all the independent pieces. I'm thinking I'm going to block all the pieces independently before I sew them together as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. The only pieces that I think I'm gonna sew into the other pattern pieces or pick up stitches into the other pattern pieces are the sleeves. I'm probably gonna connect them or start them at the end of the front and back panels once those are sewn together, and then I can just start it straight off of that. That and the button band, because that's how button bands typically work. I'm not sure what buttons I'm going to use yet. I have a really wide collection of random buttons, but I just don't know. I just don't know which ones I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to use a darker button just because, again, this is like a, let me show you the correct side. Again, this is like a nice browny gray color, so I think like some dark brown buttons might look cute. We went to Joann's, like there's like technically 4 near me. There's one that's like a 5-minute drive away, and then the other 3 are all like 30 to 40 minutes away. But of course the one I'm directly next to doesn't have all the yarn. It only has a little section of yarn. So on one of our outings I bought the 2 skeins of yarn. I was really tied on whether or not I wanted to do the orange yarn or if I wanted to do this fawn color. But I decided if this is more for like everyday wear, then it might make more sense to do the fawn color. I have a lot of darker tones in my wardrobe already. I typically wear a lot of black, gray. I have like a blue shirt and like an orange shirt I wear often. That orange top I made I wear fairly often. And so I figured it might make more sense to go with a more discreet color. I don't think that's really the words I'm looking for, but simplistic, that idea. I'm calling this cardigan, I'm not sure. I've gone through a couple different names. The first one was the woodland cardigan, because originally my plan was to embroider the pockets with some foliage, so like some vines, some lavender, or like a sunflower or something, or mushrooms. But now I'm not convinced I'm going to do pockets, so my other thought was I do it on the first knit section. Ugh. So then my next plan was I do it on this first knit section here, just so that it's like just a little design down there at the bottom. I still might do that. I'm just not sure. If I want this to be more of an everyday cardigan, doing that kind of negates that purpose in my mind. But I might also just go onto my test swatch that I showed you and maybe try it on there, see if I like it or not. But originally this was the woodland cardigan. Then it came into the wooded lands cardigan, which I was like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know. And then the more I look at it, I think specifically because of the colorway I'm using, I think I like the name the Forest Plains cardigan. It's a little bit of like a knock towards a game I play called Magic the Gathering. But also I do think that like the broken rib stitch here does kind of look like, you know, maybe tall forest or something, while the knit is just flat. And so my idea is like, oh, you know, one row's plains and the next row's a forest or something. I don't know, that's kind of where I'm thinking with it. Let me know if you have a better idea down below. But yeah, I think that's it for today's video. Hopefully you had a fun time hearing me yabber on. That's not the word. Who cares? But hopefully you had a good time listening to me chat, listening to me talk. Again, I think this is gonna be 2 to 3 videos. I think the next video will go up sometime next month. Is my thought, just to do kind of like a check-in, let you know if I run into any problems, because I probably will, and go from there. Hope you enjoyed today's video. See you next week. Bye.